spend this hour with you today, and thanks for taking your time. We have a special guest with us today, Kristen Girts from TOTO USA, who is here to share with you her experience about working with sustainable mines over the last year plus in doing LCAs and developing transparency reports for TOTO and the plumbing products industry. Most of you attending today have been on webcast before, so you pretty much know the drill. There's a questions panel. You can input your questions at any time. We'll have a good Q&A section at the end. Any questions we don't get to, we'll certainly follow up with you to answer. The session is being recorded, and we'll post it on our blog in the next few days after the webcast, and we look forward to connecting with you subsequently as well. Today, we're going to start out, for some of you who have not yet attended one of our webcasts, we're going to really take a look at what is the Transparency Report program and what drove us to create it and what problems are we trying to solve. And then in this next section, we'll drill into the methodology of the Transparency Report framework. Once we've set the stage for that, Kristen will tell us about creating the product group definitions and doing the LCAs for the different products at TOTO. And then we'll actually look at those product group definitions that are up for public comment now, do a quick demo to show you how to comment, or even how to initiate product group definitions of your own, how you can use the product group definitions that TOTO has created to start your own LCAs. And even further, Kristen will touch on this as well, how to update or add new content to PGDs that have been published. And then we'll move into more Q&A. Let me start out by bringing our attention to the user, the architects, builders, and contractors who are trying to build greener buildings and trying to respond to market demand and looking at the technology that's changing the way buildings operate and live on the planet today. So these guys are looking for all the help that they can get. In fact, probably everyone on the call knows architects who look a little bit like that, or at least who wear black. And everybody knows that there's pretty big changes afoot. No one really knows how it's all going to play out. And you, as the manufacturers who are on the call today, are trying to figure out how do we get in front of these guys to help them understand what we're doing about making greener products. How can we be credible? How can we continue to build preference in our brand, continue to build that trust and that loyalty and stand out from the crowd? And really all comes back now as we get into integrating environmental performance into the way we make products. There is a lot of trust, and there's a lot of speculation, and there's a lot of distrust about how things are getting done, and ultimately how these customers can make decisions that they understand, that they have confidence in, and that are credible without the manufacturer having to essentially jump up and down and say, hey, we're credible. The challenge, and quite nicely stated by Paul Shariari, CEO of GreenMind and founder of Eco Scorecard and Green Building Technical Advisor to Sustainable Mines, is he talks about the amount of green data that is really amassing, and it's very complex, and there is no dispute that it's critical to help simplify and categorize that information so that folks involved in making decisions across the product development and the building development process can get access to that information and use it in a way that makes sense to them in that particular point in time. Transparency reports and the Transparency Report program has been designed to put that information to work, to put manufacturers' information to work in a way that your customers can understand and use, and that you as manufacturers can reuse across these applications that are becoming increasingly available. In short, the Transparency Report program represents a step change innovation in greener product manufacturing by providing a holistic solution for designing and marketing greener products. Sustainable Minds started out in the business of helping manufacturers design greener products, but to credibly create greener products, we've gotten to the point in the evolution of product manufacturing where design and marketing must be integrated. And the only way to do that is through technology tools that makes knowledge available to everyone in the process, that the tools can be integrated, that the process is collaborative, and ultimately that it's scalable. So here's the way we think of the greener design and marketing continuous improvement loop. And today we're really going to focus on the marketing side, and so not so much on the design side, but ultimately they flow, and it is a continuous improvement loop if we're going to continue to improve the way we make things over time. And at the end of the day, it's really just about making better decisions or greener decisions in the design process, in the marketing process, and in the purchasing process. So it's all about making better decisions earlier on and operationalizing into product development. And then in marketing, getting visibility for new greener products, making sure that the reporting is credible and efficient, that we're standardizing consistency and predictability of what you're going to get, of what your customers are going to get. And at the end of the day, it's all about connecting buyers and sellers and rewarding the manufacturers who are making credibly greener products and their customers who are specifying those products and putting them into buildings that perform better. These are really the key ideas behind what we're doing, and you know, we're doing this to be fully transparent about Sustainable Minds as a company and what we hope to achieve. We've seen this demand for transparency and greener products really scale in the last few years, and therefore requires a comprehensive solution. We don't see how incremental changes to existing processes that are standalone are going to make a big difference. They're not going to move the market. A complete integrated solution means that each piece needs to be rethought. Now, our mission as a company has always been to operationalize environmental performance in the mainstream product development and manufacturing worldwide. So operationalizing on the marketing side is really just the next step in our progression. But again, with keeping our focus on the value of the solution to meet our customers' needs. So in the case of the Marketing Better platform, our goal is to reduce the focus on the technical standards and terminology and process that are required by the industry and the market, and really just focus on the solution, but substantiate how everything that's required is baked in. That it shouldn't be a question of whether it's credible or not, or whether a manufacturer is behaving credibly or not. The presence of a Sustainable Minds Transparency Report should be part of our brand, is that the credibility is baked in. We use a customer-centered design process to create products that are user-friendly, understandable, not just for customers, but for all the stakeholders. We use credible science. It's never black box, and the credibility is baked in. And it's the same position, the same brand promise that we've delivered with our software. Now, in the marketing better side, in addition, we've partnered with NSF. Our transparency reports are being certified by one of the most well-respected, internationally recognized organizations. But let me be clear, the transparency report program is not a proprietary system. We're very grateful and really honored to be working with NSF to bring this product to market. Our goal long-term is that lots of folks will get involved in the ecosystem of creating transparency reports to standardize the way product transparency reporting is done worldwide. And you're going to see how we believe it requires a lot more than just checking a box to actually change the way people think and choose to act. So again, it's all about the report. The PCR development process is the first part of the journey to get to the report, but manufacturers' customers never see a PCR. They don't care about the process. All they want to know is that these results are credible and that there's everything that they want to know to specify a product, the functional performance and the environmental performance. They need all that information to make a decision. So let's make it easy for them to make a decision. Let's put it all in one place rather than having different brochures on different topics and segregating the environmental information from the marketing and product information that manufacturers' customers need today to make decisions. The transparency report is designed in 3 pages to include all the information that someone would need to make a purchase decision in one place, but because it lives in the cloud, it can link to many places, or as many places as the manufacturer would like to be able to send their customers to. The 3 pages summarize on the front page the performance dashboard. The second page is all the LCA results and the interpretation of those results, which is critical. This is part of the innovation that we've added. LCA results are required for Type 3 environmental declarations. Very few people other than life cycle assessment experts understand what they mean. So making these results understandable and ultimately making them meaningful by demonstrating that the manufacturer really does understand this information and that they really are taking action to improve the environmental performance of their products based on the LCA results. And that's what this page 3 is about, where the manufacturer can talk about and tell stories and pictures and text about what they're doing at each life cycle stage that's contributing to the performance improvement of their products. I just want to put a little finer point on the format of page 2 because we reuse that format, and you'll see increasingly as we bring out more products, we're going further to identify all of the types of environmental reporting that manufacturers will need to do in various industries and be able to make that information meaningful by presenting the data itself and then presenting the interpretation and then all the links to references, resources, and values and rating systems so that it's all right there. Now I want to bring your attention to the actual ISO 14025 standard about creating Type 3 environmental declarations. This note at the bottom of page 3 talks about the fact that program developers can choose to call their Type 3 environmental declarations anything they like, and that environmental product declaration, or EPD, is simply an example of what a Type 3 environmental declaration can be called. So at Sustainable Minds, we chose to call our Type 3 environmental declaration the Transparency Report. Now, they're also called environmental product declarations, but we call ours the Sustainable Minds Transparency Report. So it is a Type 3 environmental declaration when it's verified, when the LCA is verified and the report is certified. But we've designed a transparency report to allow anyone to get started at any level they like, and particularly based on what the manufacturer believes their customers need. So you can produce a transparency report where the LCA is self-declared and the report is self-declared. Now, you're not going to earn any points in LEED or in the green rating systems, but your customers are probably going to be still pretty happy that you are credibly and transparently reporting on your products. You can also create a report where the LCA is third-party verified and the report is self-declared. And in LEED, that earns you a product-specific declaration. It earns you a quarter product credit. But to get to the full Type 3 environmental declaration, your LCA needs to be third-party verified, and your report needs to be certified in a two-step process. And every page in a transparency report bears this footer to make it very clear the scope and the verification level of that particular report. And here's the big picture that we're working towards, is that all these manufacturers' reports will live in the Sustainable Minds manufacturer showroom in the cloud, organized by where they sit in the value chain, and all of their reports are accessible not only through the manufacturer showroom, but through any place else on the internet or social media that the manufacturer chooses to drive traffic to or from. And again, because they live in the cloud, the data is not encoded in PDFs, and that data can be used or reused for other applications and other purposes as you evolve in your use of technology and data delivery. So with that setup, I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Joep Meyer, our LCA technical expert and the creator of the Transparency Report framework, and Naji Kasem, the Transparency Report program coordinator and our LCA services director, both of whom are running this program to delve into the technical detail and talk about this part of the innovation of developing the PCR. You take it away.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, this is Joep Meyer. Good to be here. I'd like to spend a few minutes on what we call and how we define our product group definition, and how that relates to commonly people referring to the interpretation of the ISO standards in what's called a product category rule document, a PCR. And what we've done is we created a big innovation by separating that out into what we call a Part A and a Part B. And so I want to explain to you what the real differences are, and then talk a little bit about what's actually in Part A and in Part B. So Part A and Part B, they work together. So you need both to be able to create a transparency report. The beauty is that we made the product group definition development as concise and as time limited and cost efficient as possible. And how we're doing that is we're putting you to work. Industry that wants to declare the transparency report can initiate the development of a product group definition document. So you can do some of that legwork. In there is just what relates to the product group, and anything that relates to the general framework, how we deal with metals, how we deal with end-of-life scenarios, doesn't have to be in the Part B product group definition, but goes into what we call our Part A. And so any iteration of a transparency report, if we learn something that can benefit all products, we add it to what we call our Part A. And any new product that needs a product group definition doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, can use the common and consistent knowledge in Part A and apply it to that product group, and only think about, okay, when we think about that product group, what still needs to get added. So the structure around Part A improves consistency and standardization. Part B is then really concise, and so the generation of that process takes weeks or months instead of years. By feeding all the information in from what we learned from all these different transparency reports, we are increasing consistency and comparability for the general framework. And by focusing only what matters most for the products in Part B, we're increasing consistency between comparison of products. And the example from TOTO, you can actually see that we declared a use phase scenario because we learned from early LCAs that was important for the end result. And the PGD now covers a default use phase scenario so that anybody else is going to work on toilets or sanitary ceramics or fittings can use the same use phase scenario and hence contribute to more consistent results. So there's a continuous cycle of improvement and harmonization. What we hear a lot is that EPDs are used by architects and other people just like health product declarations to check a box. And what we want to do with our innovation is talk about what's meaningful. And Terry talked about it a little bit as well. On the page 2 of the transparency report and in the background report, we spend a great lot of detail on what are the biggest environmental performance drivers and how they can be influenced and how manufacturers are actually working on them to improve them. And so it's more than just checking a box. And we want the transparency reports to be useful and meaningful. We spend a great deal of attention to that. When we talk about a transparency report or product group definition document, they all fit into what we call the Sustainable Minds Transparency Report framework. To enhance and facilitate standardization and harmonization, we're building that on the best available science. And the most used and most commented and critiqued standard for that are, of course, the ISO 14040 series that lay the groundwork for any LCA, and then the specific application of that for Type 3 environmental labels in the EN 15804. And if you look at our framework, there are 3 things that actually have to come together to make it all work. There's the product category rule, which is our Part A with the general rules, and Part B with the specific product edition. There's, of course, a governance document that describes how the system works. And to actually get to a transparency report, we have a format and a layout and their content template. So all those together form our framework. And if you look at it from the ISO terminology, if you've heard of a Type 3 environmental declaration, that's our transparency report. And if you heard of the PCR, that's our Part A plus Part B. We are a program operator, and the Sustainable Minds Transparency Report program is a Type 3 environmental declaration program. So we fully comply with that. Just like Terry said, we give it a different name. Now let's focus a little bit on Part A and Part B. Part A, like I said, is crucial. Here's where we cover the rules that any LCA for a transparency report has to comply with. It's based on the ISO 14044 standard that tells us how to do LCA, and in the EN 15804 how to focus that on Type 3 environmental declarations. And we chose to follow that mainly because so many people and so many organizations have contributed to develop this. All program operators in Europe are using it, and it includes all the rules that apply to building materials, products, and systems. So any EPD in Europe that you want to issue has to follow these rules. We've contributed to some of the development there. I personally worked on some of the aspects, and we think it's the most comprehensive framework out there, and we chose to use that for our transparency report as well. So how do we use this? Because we have an interpretation of the EN 1584, we want to make it feasible and applicable to the North American market. So we generalized where we felt we could, and we regionalized where we felt it was necessary, so we can create an LCA for any product in any industry, so not just the construction industry. One of those aspects is that if there are specific laws or standards or regulations that are regional, those typically have to go into the Part B, the product group definition, and should never be part of Part A. And we want to keep Part A as regional neutral as possible. Another thing we've done is that some of the European-based parts of the EN 1584, we've regionalized the US market. An example is that we're using Tracy and not the methods that they're using in Europe. For example, waste definition. But these are just two examples, and there are more. The main conclusion of this innovation is that we're using the best science available. We're putting all the general rules in what we call Part A, so you don't have to worry about that. They will be consistently applied over all products. And the only thing you have to worry about as a manufacturer is, hey, how does my specific product fit in? Do I need any additional decoration, yes or no? And that goes into Part B, and they together form the product category rule document. And so that concludes that the framework is open, and we feel like with every iteration we learn more. We feed that either to Part A or Part B, but in the end, any improvement there enhances the comparability, it removes the ambiguity, and increases inclusivity in universal application. With that short introduction on the technical content, I'd like to invite Naji. They can go over some of the details that are relevant for today's webcast. Naji?
Thank you so much, Joop. Hi, everyone. This is Naji, and I'm the co-creator authoring this framework. I'm going to present a quick overview of Parts A and B. In principle, we are here to encourage you to communicate with us and provide your feedback, and I look forward to answering all of your questions down the road. Now that Joop had summed up some of what brought the framework together, the question is, what is the recipe to create a sustainable mines transparency framework? The recipe to cook the transparency report is illustrated here. So the framework in the middle consists of three documents, the governance documents, Parts A and Parts B, which follow on, or build on these standards, namely ISO 14025 and the ISO 1440 series, to drive effective transparency reporting. We can see the process on the right includes participations and inputs from people. That is a feedback-driven process. Interested parties and the TAB do provide this feedback, and the TAB is an independent third party charged with maintaining the framework. We are here to talk about Part A, which is the second part based on which the transparency report is written, but Part A and Part B go along. So Part A provides a modular structure that allows easy organization and expression of data packages throughout the life cycle of the product. The essence is that transparency reports are derived, verified, and presented in a harmonized manner. So Part A defines the general rules that apply to any product and any product group in any industry. It deals with two main things, the LCA calculation rules or instructions. It details the LCA parameters and talks about the report content ingredients. The system boundary table that is an example of these LCA parameters. Here's a table of recommended system boundaries, and without getting into details, It provides an example of how Part A informs the LCA professional appropriately of the three options of the system boundaries currently allowed by the framework. The product stage information module, for example, A1 through A3, is the only stage which is essential to provide within the framework, as the impact of making a product will not vary depending on where it is used. Moving along, this is where another example of how the system boundaries choice is presented in the transparency report. Depending on the choice of the system boundary, the decision made by the manufacturer. So we're moving to Part B. This is where we define the specific characteristics of each product group, the fundamental issues that deals with this specific product group, such as the determination of the functional unit. That's after having already defined the general LCA parameters in Part A. Now, with the PGDs that are currently available online, we're looking for the third-party feedback to confirm their completeness and to improve them so that they are as good as they can be. And that, if you recall, that's the feedback to the right of the recipe that we have I've talked about a little while ago. You can comment on Part B without having intimate knowledge of Part A, and that is because the main parts that deal with the product groups is actually available and existent in Part B. And in order to facilitate the creation of PGDs, we have a standardized content collection template, which I'm showing an example of here. And we look forward to engaging individuals and organizations in the process of creating their own PGDs in more detail. Having said that, I will take it back to Terry. Terry, could you take it along?
Thank you, Naji and Joop. We are really thrilled to be able to have worked with the folks at TOTO over the course of developing the Transparency Report program, and really excited to be able to have Kristen Girts here with us today to tell you firsthand about the process of creating transparency reports, doing LCAs, and producing product group definitions. Kristen is going to tell you about what a journey it's been for her, because as you can see, her role is LCA and Transparency Report Program Manager. Her title is Associate Quality Engineer in Development Engineering. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to talk about the project background and how she's been doing LCAs and creating PGDs, and we're going to look at some of the PGDs that she's worked on to illustrate some of her points, and then following that, we're going to go to the website and look at the PGDs in review page and look at how you can comment and participate or start initiating your own product group definitions for your industry. So Kristen, take it away.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Girts. As Terry said, I serve as the LCA and Transparency Report Program Manager, and my title with TOTO is Associate Quality Engineer. September will mark my 4th year with the company, and prior to working for TOTO, I was actually a science teacher in public schools, and prior to that, a lab tech at the University of Georgia's Food Microbiology Lab. So the plumbing industry is rather new to me, and I'm certainly enjoying the challenges. My favorite part is it has introduced me to the world of LCA, PCR, EPDs, and all those acronyms for which we are trying to become more familiar with. So I stepped into the role of TOTO's LCA and Transparency Report Program Manager 2 years ago when my predecessor moved into another position. I was chosen based on my background in biology and natural sciences. However, at the time, I didn't even know what an LCA was. So here I was trying to take on this project, and I was just basically fed to the wolves. So, and if you have noticed, my title does not have the word sustainability in it. And the reason I'm pointing that out to you is to convey to you that anyone with a little background and familiarity for an industry and with access to resources can create a product group definition. It's been a learning process for me, and I now have a much better understanding of the process, having been through it with the assistance of experts in the field and our LCA service provider, Sustainable Minds. I'm going to walk you through the process and explain the approach I took in creating the PGDs, but just a little background first. TOTO USA has always conducted some level of LCA for internal use. And in 2013, we began a new, more comprehensive study aligned with ISO 14044 in order to publish the Sustainable Minds Transparency Report for our customers. Much of the information used in developing the PGD was extracted from the information collected to create our LCA model, which is somewhat of a backwards approach because LCAs and EPDs are meant to be generated in accordance with a PCR. However, in the absence of a PCR for our products, we've published the transparency reports for ceramic, and the PGDs for those groups, as well as other groups, were developed subsequent to those transparency reports. Had the PGD been already available, we would have used it for the alignment of our LCA. So the process began with an example for the residential toilet being drafted by Sustainable Minds. They've been an excellent service provider in terms of encouraging collaboration within and across industries, so they've spearheaded this endeavor and drafted our first PGD based on information within our LCA report. I reviewed the draft, provided my comments and edits, and then I got to work on initiating the remaining PGDs by following their example and template. Each of these are up for public comment and include residential toilets, commercial faucets, commercial toilets, commercial urinals, and the flush valves that correspond with a toilet or urinal. So how were these created? Because much of the data had already been determined during either the development of our LCAs or during other studies conducted by TOTO Japan or TOTO USA, it just needed to be compiled and organized for use in the PGD. So quite a bit of Q&A and feedback between myself and TOTO USA personnel took place. I worked with a fantastic team of engineers who were instrumental to the process. These are the guys who engineer and provide support for the products for which the PGDs were written. So I was able to tap into their knowledge of existing standards and certifications that were based on research. And they were able to quickly point me to any literature for citing within the PGD. So for data and figures that needed substantiation, the literary reviews were conducted. But as you know, if you're in the plumbing industry, there's often little information available regarding the use phase of some of these products, particularly the commercial faucet and commercial toilet. For products for which water sense can be applied, EPA studies were used on many occasions, particularly in the use phase scenario. You'll see the water sense document cited as well once we get into the PGDs. TOTO's private studies were also used to develop the use phase scenario. For example, in developing warranty terms for our product years ago, the use of the product had to be better understood. So those studies were conducted by our R&D team in Japan, and as a result were used to develop the PGD. So a lot of information has to go into the PGD, and it just has to be compiled from the resources that are already available to you. So let's go over the key points of how to write a PGD. The first step is to determine your product group. The product groups are determined by the unique service that a product delivers. We initiated PGDs for the products we have already conducted LCAs and published transparency reports. These include residential and commercial toilets, and it's important to understand why there needs to be separate PGDs for ceramic, because not all ceramic products deliver the same service. They don't do the same thing. For example, a commercial toilet and a commercial urinal deliver different services a commercial toilet and a residential toilet are used in different applications and have different life cycle stages. So these are all things that need to be considered when determining the product group. We also initiated PGDs for commercial electronic faucets, commercial urinals, and the flush valves that accompany the commercial toilets and urinals, as I spoke of earlier. And as we add unique products to the LCAs we do, we will look to initiate additional PGDs, and we would like to do that with other manufacturers. So right now we're looking at the residential toilet PGD. Can we bring up the commercial faucet PGD? Thank you. The approach I took was one in which the commercial toilet, commercial urinal, and commercial flush valve PGD were generated concurrently. They were done at the same time because they are meant to be used in combination with each other, meaning a toilet needs its flush valve and vice versa. So we use similar use case scenarios. But the first PGD that was created was for the commercial faucet. And I began with this one for no particular reason other than I felt it was the most unique compared to the others, and probably the easiest, so it would be a good starting point. So in developing a product group name, as you see, this one is currently called commercial faucet. You want to name the product group to provide descriptors so that the characteristics of the product are implicit, but exclude products that would not require the same life cycle stage scenario, in our case the use stage. So just as an example, we were discussing changing the name to commercial electronic faucet in order to include an additional qualifier and differentiate the product from others on the market. There were also some discussion on whether or not to include or exclude kitchen faucets within this product group. And we chose to exclude it based on the application of the faucet because this is, and because of this, we also discussed using the word lavatory, which would differentiate between kitchen and bathroom applications. We did not include the word lavatory because we feel that by calling it a commercial electronic faucet, that would be implied, since electronic kitchen faucets are such a niche item. Although that seems to be changing with a new trend in residential electronic kitchen faucets. So we welcome any comments in the name of the product group, and as you can see, a lot of thought goes into just the name, and it's not as simplistic as it seems like it should be. The next section underneath the existing PCRs, comparability among products only works well if the products being compared are consistent in what is included in the LCA. The review of existing PCRs or other documents is required in the process and helpful in understanding the approach that others took for their LCA. Gathering information on existing PCRs for the plumbing industry in North America was pretty straightforward, as none currently exist. Sustainable Minds did provide this European PCR that you can see highlighted here, but as is noted, it did not include additional specific rules for the product groups or anything additional to Part A. Once the current proposed PGDs are accepted and published, Terry, is it correct that we can begin to cite those for others in the industry?
Yes, everyone else can start to use them.
Great. So then let's talk about the functional performance section underneath. It provides some standards, and available certifications are listed in order to provide some information on characteristics and attributes of the product in terms of functional performance and service delivered. These are important because products within the same product group would need to align with these codes and standards. We could have easily gotten carried away here, as there are many national and local codes that can be met. There's IAPMO, California Green Building Code, State of Massachusetts, UPC, IPC, NSPC, the list goes on. So we needed to list standards that would best highlight the functional performance that all products in that product group would need to align with, but without generating a superfluous list. So we chose to highlight the EPAC 1992 and ASME standards or ASSE standards because all manufacturers must abide by these functional and performance standards. The EPA WaterSense program was also highlighted where applicable, mainly because we often cite their literature in defining the use phase. So can we switch over to, I guess, the urinal? This is going to be the commercial urinal. So here we've cited the EPAC again, the EPA WaterSense, and also the ASME standard that applies to the urinal. Currently, there are WaterSense certifications for residential toilets and commercial urinals, and their corresponding flush valves, and those are going to be listed, but one does not exist for commercial toilets. Can we switch to the commercial toilet PGD? Or the flush valve, whichever one you have up. Yeah, this one, yeah. So for the WaterSense here, this PGD includes for the flush valves, it includes the urinal and the toilet, but as you can see for WaterSense, that one is currently in development. So as it's being proposed, and I believe it's in development, so it's noted there. So as we gain more information based upon new studies that come out, we'll be able to update the PGDs at that time. So on the commercial flush valve PGD, we'll go down to the declared functional unit, and a product's use phase must be defined. This is the area that will further set the product apart from products defined in other PGDs and will allow for comparability among products in the same group. The amount of service delivered by the product is stated here, and the rationale is explained. So for the declared unit for the commercial flush valve, we have 10 years of use of a flush valve for toilets and urinals in an average U.S. commercial environment. And we do explain our rationale behind that, and basically it's based on some studies we've done about for the economic lifespan, how quick the technology would change, and based on warranty information, et cetera. So you do want to explain your rationale. There's also this section some additional notes that can provide a deeper understanding of the functional unit. So we also added a statement about the fact that flush valves are used in combo with their ceramics. So this statement is included to remind people not to duplicate the use phase for products that are used together. Additional rules for comparability. This area can be used for further clarification and to add additional product specifics. In the add rules to Part A or PGD, we made some notes about the elements, elements such as building infrastructure that we felt should be excluded from the scope of the model. So that's listed there. For the purpose of comparability, it's important to make sure that everyone's doing the same thing in their LCA. Default life cycle stage here, we further defined the default life cycle stage scenario in more detail. The use phase defined here was based on gathered data that I described earlier. Either TOTO's internal studies on product were applied, or we used those described by WaterSense. We also felt that it was important to understand the energy implications of water use. So we conducted internal studies and literary reviews in 2008, and these are listed here to determine the kilowatt-hour electricity use for a gallon of water. And you see those results are there in this section as well. So the last step in developing the development of a PGD is an ongoing one because this is somewhat of a living document. We need to continue improving the PGD for standardization. As the industry moves forward with studies, any additional use phase scenarios that emerge should be added to the PGD. A good example here is, like I was discussing earlier, the development of the EPA WaterSense standard for commercial toilet flush valves. So as new studies are brought forward, the PGD should be updated to reflect the latest understanding of the use phase. And I just really would like to encourage comments to these PGDs. We spend a lot of time on them, and I do want to add too that after some further discussion with my team regarding the name of one of the product groups, we actually went into the online form, and I actually made a comment to my own PGD. Because I've already submitted the initiation form, this is the process. And I have to say that commenting was really easy, and the application is very user-friendly. And in addition to that, I also want to encourage manufacturers in the plumbing industry to use them, and please initiate new ones for additional product groups. So I think at this time, Terry will explain to you how to initiate a PGD.
Thank you, Kristen. That was very concise and a good way to summarize work that we all learned about over time. And for those of you who are excited about developing product group definitions and weighing in on the decisions that went into these, you can come right here to the Sustainable Minds website, go to the Transparency Report Program section, click on the PGDs and Review, and here you are on this page. You see in this table, you can click on the links and get the PGD right there, so you can read through it. And then you can go back to the page, and go directly to the comment form. And the way that we've designed the comment form is to either allow you to agree, because we really want as many people to participate as possible. So you can either agree or you can provide input. So the product group definition is very short. It's 4 sections. So here's section 1, product group. Do you agree with the name and the scope of this product group, yes or no? If no, provide some suggestions. Are there any other relevant PCRs, EPDs, or other transparency reports that also should be referenced or utilized, yes or no? In the functional performance section, are those references for the way that industry measures the functional performance of that product? Are those references complete, yes or no? If not, provide additional references. Same thing with declared or functional unit. Do you agree with the proposed unit and the supporting rationale, yes or no? And then, are there additional rules sufficient for enhancing comparability of the products? And I really want to focus on that. There can be a product group definition that does not require any additional rules for comparability. But certainly, the things that make the behavior of that product specific, where there can be scenarios in any stage of the product's life cycle that help with comparability, can get included in the product group definition. And we're also requesting any general comments or feedback that you have on the process, because the whole process is about continuous learning and continuous improvement. You'll also find on this page links to the TOTO transparency report, so you can actually see those live. You can actually download the Part B and look at the instructions for how to create a Part B. And so these are very simple instructions, and I think at one point Kristen said when she got started she read the instructions and was able to dive right in. And in this download is the example residential toilet, as well as the empty product group PGD request form, which is one page, just 4 sections: name, functional performance, declared unit, and additional rules. Now, we've talked to you about how to comment. The way to initiate is just as I showed you, to download that Part B, fill out the product group definition form, and simply submit it through that page. Either email it to the TAB at Sustainable Minds, that's Naji and Yoop, and it will kick off the product group definition, initiation, and request process. Now, who can and should initiate a product group definition? It can be a single manufacturer, it can be a group of manufacturers, it can be an industry association where you've already determined the names of the product groups that you represent in that industry. The functional performance regulations and requirements are already defined. Easy for an industry association to start filling out some product group definitions and turning them over to a single manufacturer or a group of manufacturers continue to complete and post them for public comment. The whole process is designed to be streamlined, that things happen as quickly as you can make them happen, because once Sustainable Minds receives the product group definition request form, it gets posted for public comment. The comments come back in, the TAB reviews the comments, determines whether or not the comments should be used to update the product group definition or not. All the comments will be posted on the website, and the final product group definition will get published. But the process has also been designed for continuous learning and continuous improvement. So 3 months later, the next manufacturer uses the product group definition and in their LCA process determines that there might be another scenario that's useful for comparability. The very same process applies. You fill out the product group definition form, the very same form. You submit it with the suggested scenarios. The same thing could happen with functional unit, any other part of that product group definition. It goes out for public comment. We notify industry and others on the list. Comments come in, the TAB reviews and makes a determination. So again, unlike the traditional PCR process where many, many months or sometimes years get spent on determining the rules up front, and then it gets frozen for years after that, this process allows for improvement while people learn and changes happen. And if you've published the transparency report to a particular version of a product group definition, if there are changes to that PGD, that does not require you to change your transparency report. When your transparency report is up for review in 3 years, then you'll need to bring it into alignment with the current version of that product group definition. But again, it's about being able to get things done in a timely fashion and continue to learn and improve. When you get started, anyone can start if they've already done an LCA. Anyone can start if there already is a PCR in that industry, whether it's in Europe or in the US. You can take an existing PCR and turn it into product group definitions and still keep it harmonized with the existing PCR. Because of our continuous improvement capability, our product group definitions can always be harmonized as the industry representatives feel is appropriate. At the end of the day, everybody benefits, all of the stakeholders. We will continue to improve and add to the transparency report program. watch for our webcast next month. We'll be introducing our HPD overview, which can be an optional tab in a transparency report. And I didn't mention, but I'll mention it now, that when you get a transparency report, you get more than just a report. You get your LCA data in the Sustainable Minds software in your own private data set so that you can go back into the design process, and your product development teams can now model and improve the design of your products and hopefully enable you to manufacture a greener product, update your LCA results, update your transparency report, and the circle continues. We're at the top of the hour, and the questions that have come in over time pretty much were addressed, and so we will wrap up now, and again follow up with each of you with questions that have been provided. Feel free to reach out to us. I want to thank Kristen for taking the time to share her experiences with us today. And for all of you who attended, we really welcome your comments on every product group definition, whether you're an industry expert or not. And we welcome folks not in the plumbing products industry who are interested in getting started creating product group definitions and thinking about using the Transparency Report program in your industry. Reach out to us, get started. We'd love to help you design and market greener products. So thanks and have a great day. Thank you, Yupa Naji.